morning. You're watching Businessworld Live. I'm Danie Laurel. It's the start of a new trading day. Let's go straight to our top story. The DENR has officially lifted the 4-year-old ban on open pit mining, with the agency hoping that the move will help drive the economy's recovery from the pandemic. But an advocacy group warns that the resumption of open pit mining may lead to further environmental damage. Shaila Francisco with the rest of the story.
In pit mining, the DNR is reversing course. Her predecessor, Secretary Royce Matu, signed an administrative order lifting the moratorium on open pit mine. The order says open pit mining is a globally accepted method and is considered the most feasible option for mining near surface deposits. It also says control strategies are present to manage its negative impacts. According to the Mines and Geosciences Bureau, there are around 4 open pit mining projects which are ready to proceed. To ensure safety, MGB will subject the operations to monitoring while a committee will assess surface mining in the country. The Chamber of Mines of the Philippines sees this bolstering economic recovery, something the Environment Department echoes.
We need funding for our campaign against the pandemic and other activities of the government. May malaki tayong income na nakukuha sa ating ekonomiya.
The repeal of the ban on open pit mining comes just months after the government lifted the moratorium on new mining deals. For Alianza Tigalmina, the new move will further worsen climate change in the country, noting that Typhoon Odette hit most of mining-affected communities.
Yung mga mining-affected communities, dahil wala na nga gubat, kinalbo na kinabkab na yung bundok, pinutol na yung kagubatan, mas prone sila sa landslide, flooding at erosion. Di kami naniniwala that open pit mining has a place in an archipelagic country.
The DNR assures that environmental concerns will be addressed.
Very strict. Kailangan they will have to comply or else they will lose their permit. Automatic yan.
Shaila Francisco, we are One News.
Meanwhile, the government is likely to extend the nationwide alert level 2 until the end of January. That's after the current status lapses by January 1st. This as the government gears up for a possible surge in infections, with 4 cases of the more transmissible Omicron variant already detected in the country. Now, in an interview with the chiefs, the Octa research team says there's no community transmission yet of the Omicron variant. But NTF Special Advisor Ted Herbosa thinks otherwise. This after the husband of the country's 4th Omicron variant case also tested positive for COVID-19. The husband's sample is now going through genome sequencing to determine which COVID variant he is afflicted with. Herbosa says it's possible that this could be the first case of local Omicron transmission in the country. Meanwhile, Health Secretary Francisco Duque said adjustments need to be done in the country's health system amid the Omicron threat. Duque assured the public that we have enough capacity to deal with a surge. But the health chief insists it is still prudent to review our health system capacity in light of the more transmissible COVID variant. Kicking off the market report with some economic figures here, this as the Banco Central is saying that December inflation likely hit between 3.5% to 4.3%. Now recall that the upper band of the target range is at 4%, so there is a possibility that December might be breaching that. They did mention that consumer price increases were mainly driven by the higher electricity rates, along with the uptick in food prices due to, of course, the weather disturbances. But he did mention the Governor Diokno, that these could be offset in part by the rollbacks in domestic petroleum prices and even the peso's appreciation. Note that last November, the inflation was at 4.2% year on year. The BSP has also said that home prices rose 6.3% in the third quarter. Now, let's take a quick peek at how the peso is reacting to that. You can see us actually weakening a touch here, up by 173 centavos. That is already breaching 50 spot 63 to the greenback. So again, quite a weaker peso at the open here. Let's open our index. Let's take a look at the 3 day to see the difference between yesterday's surge and today's slide. We are down by 0.14%, nevertheless, still firm above 7,200 levels. Recall that yesterday we closed above 7,200 on the back of easing concerns on the Omicron variant. And now, some new strands on that. You've actually got two separate studies from London and South Africa suggesting that there is reduced risk of hospitalization and severe disease in people with the Omicron variant versus the Delta variant. They did mention that there might be high population immunity that is affecting this. Now, an advisor to the UK government at the University of Oxford, meanwhile, said that there is an upbeat assessment when it comes to the decreasing severity of the COVID-19 cases. When they do end up in the hospital due to Omicron, they spend less time there compared to Delta. Now, let's take a look at a couple of sectors here. I wanted to specifically look at the mining and oil counter, continuing that uptrend. Of course, officially, the ban on open pit mining has now been lifted. It was announced yesterday, and the index of mining and oil rallied there. You have Mark Ventures rising more than 6.5% yesterday, continuing to rise by 2.6%. Philex advancing 4.6% and continuing that enjoyable gain, and that, yesterday already rising to the highest since December 2. And finally, I just wanted to take a very quick peek at Union Bank. This as they're trying to solve that fraud issue, saying they've now pressed charges against the persons involved in that fraud incident, where, of course, the bank was among some of the financial institutions that received unauthorized fund transfers from the accounts of BDO clients. So they have already said they're working very closely with the regulators and BDO to make sure that the issue is now closed. Here are the other headlines we're keeping our eyes on. HMO profits declined in the third quarter. That's after a surge in claims outweighed the revenue growth. Now, the latest data from the Insurance Commission showed that the HMO industry posted an almost 41% decline in overall net profit to 4 billion pesos in the third quarter. The commission explained the decrease is driven by a nearly 12% increase in total expenses, that despite the 2.6% jump in total revenues to 39 billion pesos year on year, driven by growth in membership and enrollees fees. Now, healthcare benefit claims reached about 24 billion pesos in the third quarter. That's up by over 23% compared to the same period of last year. Although the unaudited financial statements of 28 HMOs indicate an asset growth of more than 27%. That is on the back of a corresponding growth in the value of the industry's investment portfolio, despite the decrease in cash and cash equivalents. The death toll from the onslaught of Typhoon Odette has now reached 397. That's according to the latest data from NDRRMC. Meanwhile, the estimated cost of damages to infrastructure is now at 16.7 billion pesos. The agency is likewise reporting damage to agriculture amounting to 5.5 billion pesos, but the Agriculture Department is reporting a much higher agricultural damage tally to the tune of 8 billion pesos. Now, to help affected communities in their rehabilitation efforts, the DBM has released an additional 1 billion pesos to Odette hit LGUs. The Budget Department likewise released over 800 million pesos to the agencies, contributing to the recovery of the communities hardest hit by the typhoon. And as Noche Buena season is over, we do a quick assessment of how the consumption was during the peak periods. And here to tell us more, we have Stephen Kua, President of the Philippine Amalgamated Supermarkets Association. Good morning, Sir Stephen, and welcome.
Good morning, Danie.
Sir, first things first, the festive season wasn't completely festive. We were hit, of course, by the strongest typhoon of the year. We're still reeling from the damages of that. How is the situation in the supermarkets within the Odette areas?
Well, in those areas, they don't have supply. Now, that's the problem. So a lot of the supplies which are sold there are now flown in from Metro Manila. So there's now a congestion also in the ports and in the shipping as well as air cargo, no, for items being flown there. Can you imagine they're flying in water because they don't have water?
Sir, have there been supermarkets that have been physically damaged as well? Can you give us an assessment of that? How many of them have been damaged?
Yes, the smaller ones have been damaged. In fact, there was a slight case of looting, no, in the smaller stores in somewhere in Surigao, no. But aside from that, our members there, they've been helping out by giving relief goods, no. So para hindi na nga ang tao hindi matakot, no. But the problem is still supply. So we're talking about the whole of Visayas up to Palawan, no. So from eastern Visayas, no, from Samar, Leyte, Maasin, no, Southern Leyte, all the way to Bohol, Cebu, Negros, Panay area, and Palawan, no. So that's why I didn't hear from my members in Palawan for around 5-6 days, no, because they've been cut off also. I mean, we've been cut off from the Philippines, sabi nila. It's been 2 weeks since Odette hit.
Sir, when do you expect some form of perhaps not 100% normalization, but at least a semblance that there will be a good supply of goods for those in need?
Last night I passed by Ross Boulevard and the traffic was really bad. No, I'm not sure if this was because of the load of cars going to the pier, but I think it was, no, because the big trucks, the container vans are you know are creating a lot of traffic, no, leading to the piers, no, and the harbors, no? And I think it has a lot to do with the movement of supplies to northern Mindanao as well as the Visayas, no, because of what happened. Like I said, relief goods have to do with more with canned goods because there's no water, so even instant noodles and pasta, no, will find its problem as to how to feed the people who are in need. It's ready to eat, easy to open canned goods. No, we're talking meatloaf, beef loaf, uh, carne norte. And we're talking those types of food stuff. No, which will be able to really help our countrymen in need in those areas.
Sir, what about the damage to agriculture and how that will impact the supply chain of supermarkets in the long term, even after you've tried, managed to fix the physical damage in the stores and the supply chain is there, but still you have lower amount of produce. Some economists predict that that will hit in the first quarter.
I'm also involved with this group called Picafe, no, Philippine Chamber of Agri-Food, no, and they've been mentioning the damage, no, done in their areas, no. Those in lower parts of Mindanao, at least, they were not really, hit, but those in the Visayas region, we're talking rice, we're talking corn, no, so we're talking a lot of industries, no, in the agri sector, which were hard hit. No, they were wiped out. No? So there will be problems with supply. Together with the election spending a little bit already, no? Because it's Christmas and candidates are giving out not just relief goods but also Christmas packages. It will create a little bit of a dent in terms of demand for these goods. But we're about to end our Christmas season, no? So hopefully things go back to normal. What's good is the suppliers, the distributors, no? They didn't, close their shops during this Christmas holiday, no? They only closed for a few days, but they were able to supply uh, retailers in need, no? So that mapagbigyan at mapadalahan ng goods sa mga nasalanta ng bagyo.
Sir, do you have an expectation po kung gaano magmamahal ang presyo, consumer prices? The BSP has said between 3.5 to 4.3% in the past tense, I mean for December. But what about moving forward? Are you expecting, inflation to persist because of the situation?
Okay, pricing is a function of supply and demand as well as a management decision. um, Supply and demand will play its part here because nga kapag naubusan ang stocks, no, pero bottled water manufacturers and have been doubling up, no, their efforts to produce more and manufacture more, no, so that people can send by the container loads, no, to these areas because we're talking about a huge area which was hit by the typhoon and all of them need water, no, just for drinking. So in the corporate world, people who have factories there need container loads of water to send to their employees, no, as well as the family of their employees. So this is adding to the demand, no, the intensity of the need for demand for water as well as the other products. So prices might go up depending on how much supply we have.
Okay. Sir, before you were here, wala pa pong audit nung time na yon. And the only concern was the rising prices because of Noche Buena, because of, the festive season. And there was a possibility that they would put ceiling on these prices. How did the meeting with the DTI go? And now do you feel that, to help those affected by the typhoon, it might be necessary to put these price ceilings?
The meeting with the DTI under the National Price Coordinating Council, chaired by the secretary, was postponed. So they didn't push through. It was nearing the Christmas season. They said lack of attendance, no, lack of people who said they were attending. So that didn't push through. But again, wala sa kamay ng retailers yan eh. It's with the suppliers, no. And again, like I said, pricing is a management decision. So some suppliers have increased prices, but again, not across the board, not on all their products, not on all brands, not on all sizes even, no? So the consumer has a choice, no? So you have to be smart and pick the right products and the right sizes, no? And the right brands, no? You have to be flexible and know how to make the most use of your, hard-earned peso.